Hey, welcome back to part 2 of what it is to create real fulfillment in your life around money. If you haven't watched the first episode, we talked about how do you create the why that makes you create the actual Fulfillionaire framework of knowing the emotions of what you want in your life. So when you hit there, you know you've won. And if you haven't watched episode 1 yet, I would wait to watch this episode because this is the tactics. But I promise you the tactics will not get you there until you know the why of what you're doing. So turn this off if you haven't seen part 1. And if you've watched part 1 and you're ready to get to the good stuff, here goes. In tactics, we're gonna cover 3 key points today. You're gonna learn basically one of the biggest misnomers about money. Here's how we're gonna start out. If I was to say to you, what is wealth to you? How would you know that you won? Take a moment right now and how would you respond to that? For most people I can tell you I've asked this question to, they respond, I'd be worth $10 million. I'd be worth $1 million. They respond by telling you their net worth. And guess what? Net worth is not the secret to winning. I'm gonna teach you today what the secret to winning is. It's actually your cash flow and it's your liquidity. So if someone wanted to ask you, and you're a Fulfillionaire, how do you feel wealthy? You're gonna be looking at how much cash flow do you create? And are you creating enough cash flow that it just generates more than what you need in your life? Because you've just been a Jedi Master with your cash flow. And we'll talk about how to get there. And also liquidity. How much liquidity makes you feel safe at night? I can tell you, I've interviewed hundreds of investors. They have these big net worths, but they kind of forget about their liquidity. And the liquidity is better than Xanax to sleeping at night. When you have the right amount of liquidity, you'll know it because you sleep really, really well. When you don't, like most people, you don't sleep so good. A lot of sleepless nights about money. You ready to dive in with me? Here comes part 2. So for the past 20 years, being in real estate, both in owning over $2 billion of real estate and transacting with about $800 million of real estate loans for other people, I've seen a lot of balance sheets, a lot of net worth. And here's what I've learned from people and their net worth and their financial statements. They get caught up in overstating their net worth. And here's the problem about your net worth and why it doesn't really tell you about where you stand as a Fulfillionaire. It's easy to value a lot of assets like real estate that's illiquid, that makes you look really big on paper. But a lot of times it makes you highly inactionable because I found that a lot of people with high net worths, they can say they're worth 5 million, 10 million. I've seen $100 million statements. And you know what they're lacking? They're lacking cash. They're so spread out. They become an addiction junkie to deals, investments. They gotta leverage. They keep going and going because guess what I could do? I could turn up 1 million into 2 million, 2 million into 4 million. And guess what happens, guys? You know what billionaires wanna do? If you have $1 billion, you wanna turn it into 2 billion. Why do you wanna keep doubling? Because you don't have a real plan or clarity around your money. So you keep chasing that feeling that you're never gonna find. You're wasting your time. And you see this at all levels. So what I'm saying to you here is like, a lot of these balance sheets of wealthy people, the dirty secret is they don't have the cash, the liquidity. So they're coming to me to borrow money. And I've had many people worth over 100 million coming to borrow $2, $3, $4 million from me. And believe me, that is not great that I'm lending somebody who's a centimillionaire money. And it's not ideal for business to it. You actually lose a lot of opportunities. So you create a liquidity. A lot of times things are concentrated, real estate, stocks. You bought lots of SpaceX, no judgment if you did, but the point is SpaceX ain't gonna create a lot of liquidity in the short term. Great when we chase things for speculation, super sexy, not a great long-term sustainable strategy. Why do we chase things that are really speculative? Because we're hoping that for some reason that risk will finally create enough money for us in that real estate deal. If you're doing cryptocurrency and you don't even know what the name or what it actually does, if you're buying these complicated investments and you're not exactly sure what they do, but you heard your friend who's really rich is doing it, you're doing it because you're still not clear on what enough is and you don't have a good tactical plan on how to get there. And a lot of times, here's the thing that people don't realize, and I can tell you, I've made this mistake myself so many times. When you buy these speculative investments, they get tied up for years. I'm going to tell you a funny story because I just have to tell you the story. Turns out I did invest in SpaceX 6 years ago. I didn't even know. It wasn't a ton of money, but I actually did the right thing. So I reached out to, because I thought I did. And so I reached out to the person that I invested with 6 years ago this week. I said, didn't I invest in SpaceX? And he gave me this really, really, really long email. You did, at an incredible price. Here's the problem. The way I invested in it, it takes a year of a lockout, then there's 6 more months, then they're going to evaluate again. So all I heard is I didn't hear how much I made. I heard that it's about 2 or 3 years to know if I'll get any return. And that's the problem with so many people who are chasing net worth and trying to jump their net worth through speculative investments that don't have cash flow. So they're buying things that basically one day, and we call these speculation. And here's a great definition for you, by the way. If your investment does not have any return, either like liquidity, like a stock that you can like redeem it immediately, or if it's an investment that you can't get your cash out of it, or there's no distribution for at least 1 year, you're probably in some form of a speculative investment. Not always, but that's a pretty good definition. And if you can have an investment which is considered liquid, which could be cash, but there's lots of things that are liquid. So if you're in a REIT, if you have bonds, if you have treasuries, if you have different things that you could liquidate within 7 days, that's liquidity. If you have investments like cash flow real estate, triple net, multifamily, oil revenue things, leasing platforms, things that create cash flow on the regular, whether that's monthly, quarterly, or yearly, those are things that would fall in the bucket of cash flow. And let me tell you, the thing that most people get wrong is they go for the speculation because it's really sexy over the cash flow. And if you think about it, I'll tell you one thing that I've learned through so many people counseling them, from $2 million to $100 million. When you don't know your number and you don't know your emotions of what you're trying to solve for, both financially and emotionally, guess what you tend to do? You over-speculate how much you need. So most people, I love when I ask people this question, how much do you need? I get these numbers. Then when we actually break it down for them in the Fulfillionaire framework, it's usually about half of what they actually need. Whatever number they stated was about 50 to 100% overstated because it was simply a guess. And when you're guessing, you're going to overstate for safety. You're like, I could be wrong, but there's a little extra here under my mattress just in case. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. So let's talk about, how do you win? We know the things you don't want to do. Over-speculate. You don't want to have a crypto bro who's giving you advice on things you don't understand. And you don't want to be investing in a lot of investments that will take a year or more to create cash flow. And if I was to tell you a general rule of thumb, depending on how old you are and how much you want to speculate, if you're young and feeling sexy and rich and you want to speculate, I'd say for most people, your speculation of that definition shouldn't be more than, 15% of your portfolio should be in speculative things. I think for most people, I would say it's 5%. So all your investments, I'd like to think that 95% of your investments are creating some form of cash flow for you. Less sexy, much more powerful along the way in creating what you actually want. So let's just go there. So just to wrap up this last section here on net worth, I want you to think about not just the tactical reasons with the problems with net worth, but I want you to think about the emotional problems with net worth. When you think about like what keeps you up at night, for a lot of people with high net worths who don't have liquidity or cash flow, what keeps them up at night is their company. What if their company has a black swan need? Revenue's down for a couple months, expenses are up, and they know they can't cover. And by the way, I see this a lot. This is not like a hypothetical. It happens all the time, where you have a lot of money on paper, but it's tied up in some asset that you can't get to, and your company's failing, and you are up at night trying to figure this out. I can also tell you from my own experience, opportunities do come up. And the best opportunities you will find in your life that will make you the most amount of money sometimes come up quickly. It's just an opportunity. It usually comes because the person on the other side has lots of net worth and low liquidity. And ironically, I would say it's kind of funny as I think about it, but there's been many opportunities for me where I've had the liquidity through my company to provide that liquidity that created the opportunity. So that liquidity of having that creates so many opportunities. And then, one of the simple things I would also say just to think about is what works for your nervous system, because the more relaxed you are and the more you are in the Fulfillionaire framework of really living in those feelings of meaning, love, joy and aliveness and presence, the more opportunity you're going to have to make more. And this kind of segues to me when you start to think about liquidity. I think liquidity is a vastly underlooked, very sexy benchmark for true wealth. So you think about liquidity. How much is the right amount of liquidity that you should have? And why is it important? We talked about some of the reasons why it's important, but here's why it's really important to you. Because if you're sleeping well at night, because you know you got enough liquidity for your life, for your family, for your business, and you actually have a calculation, you think it through a little bit, like I got my insurance policy, that safety in your nervous system, whether you know it or not, that sleeping better, knowing you've got a little room will make all the difference in the world on how you make your decisions. And I promise you, you will make better decisions both tactically and emotionally, which will always lead to better outcomes for you all around. You will be the winner of this. So how much is enough? My general rule is how much is enough is usually somewhere between 6 months on the low side and 24 months on the high side. I tend, just my own style, I like a lot of liquidity because in my experience of life, it's created so much opportunity. It's also fun because then your friends bring you deals and you're like, I can do that. You may not do all of them, but you can at least look at a lot of deals. So 6 to 24 months is a really, really important kind of formula for looking at liquidity. In terms of some of the benefits of when you have that liquidity and you kind of burn your number, we'll tell you how to kind of figure out your calculation here. But once you actually have that liquidity you need, it covers disruptions, avoids panic, supports your business, and hey, those downturns, these crazy times that we live in, disruption. I've had at least 4 things happen to me in the last 2 years of my business that I would have told you were 1 in 100 odds of happening. It's crazy how these things can happen out of nowhere. Things that you can't plan for, they were never in your business plan, and you kind of in the back of your mind, it's possible, but highly unlikely. The black swan events. I've been tested lately with some black swan events, and I'm so grateful that I've had the liquidity to cover the things that I've needed to cover, which means, really think about it. When you can cover your obligations versus not covering them, you get to keep playing the game rather than starting over. And I can promise you, no matter where you're at in the game, if you've created some momentum, it's always going to be better for you if you can to try to stay in the game than exit the game and start over. Bankruptcy, business dissolution, having to start over again. It takes years for most people. There's some magic people out there, but for most people, it takes years to regain that momentum. So if you can avoid having to regain that momentum through liquidity, highly, highly recommend it. If you take my workshop or if we go a little further along, I can help you through something called a burn rate, which we're going to offer to you at the end of this episode. We're going to give you a little calculator, a burn rate calculator, which will directly help you once you know how much you spend, starting to calculate how much liquidity you need. So stay tuned till the end, and I will tell you how to get this free burn rate calculator, and I think you'll love it. So how do you create liquidity? Great, JP. Nice advice you're giving me here. This is great. I'd love to have 12 months liquidity. I don't see how I'm going to do that. Well, certainly there's your active income from your business, which is what we call active income. You got to make some money for most people, but this is the secret. It's your passive income is what helps support your liquidity. There's a direct relationship between liquidity and passive income. And guess what? They're best friends. They really have this great relationship. So with liquidity, you can invest in more passive income. When you invest in more passive income and it starts to create cash flow for you in your investments, you create more liquidity. So look at this beautiful cycle you've created now. Your liquidity as you gather it through your active income for most people, you save, you make some money, your business starts to make some money, you take some of that cash, instead of reinvesting all in your business, keep some from some personal liquidity. How much? I just told you how much. Keep building from there. And in that pile of liquidity, you'll know when to start investing again. So let's say, for instance, let's just say you're in a place where you say, JP, for me, I'm single, I don't have kids, I'm young, I don't need so much liquidity. Like I don't have all the pressure, my burn rate's still on the lower side. I'm gonna start saying once I get to 12 months of liquidity, so let's just say I spend Let's use a simple number. Let's say I spend $10,000 a month, just for simplicity. So for me, if I know I've saved, would it be $120,000 a year, $10,000 a month, times 12 months, you spend $120,000 a year on your burn rate. So I'm JP, I'm gonna try to either now or create liquidity of $120,000. Cool. Once you get there, you might be able to do it really quickly. And for some of you, that might take a couple years to actually get to that number. But here's the cool thing. Once you get to that number of liquidity, guess what you get to do when you get to $121,000, $122, and you pass that safety zone, you get to spend it. And so how do you spend it? You invest it in passive income. So the liquidity that's been sitting at your bank for $120,000, you don't have to hide it under the mattress. It doesn't need to be in cash. It just needs to be in liquid assets that don't have huge fluctuations that you can redeem within 7 days. Treasuries, bonds, certain stocks that tend not to have huge fluctuations. So it's not sitting there as dead cash. It's working for you. But every dollar above that liquidity is the money that you get to invest in passive income. And that's really where you start to build, because guess what happens? You wait for the things that you absolutely love to invest in, and that's a whole other module that I'll save, how to invest that liquidity into cash flow. And guess what happens? All of a sudden you have a check coming in. My first check, guys, was $450 a month. And I couldn't believe that I managed to come up with something that I didn't have to do. And I'd open my mail. I was very young. This is the beginning of my real estate career. And $450 came into my mailbox every month. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And it was so cool that I wanted to do it again. So I bought another investment and another $300 came. And then it went on and on and on. And I can tell you, it's the most intoxicating, addicting thing you can possibly do. And you will continue doing it because it's doing a couple things for you. Strategically, it's exactly what a Fulfillionaire framework is. You're living a life that's based on you know how much you spend, and you're creating money through your active income and your passive income to support that life. And as you get more and more successful and you build that income, this is how you win the money game. You ready? Drum roll. Da, 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 da. You win the money game. When your passive income exceeds your burn rate, all options are on the table. You can quit, retire, be a nomad, go to Burning Man, go fly a jet, go do whatever you want to do at that moment. And those numbers can change, by the way. But what you've told the universe now is you are a manifester. And you've manifested what you want, not only in a dollar amount, whatever that dollar amount is, that makes you feel wealthy. But once you've declared what wealth is also on your terms, not just financially, but what wealth is for you and within the framework of the 4 Ps, you've really won. Because now you've told your brain that you're a master manifester. You're not just a manifester of money. And most of your courses out there, 7 steps to $1 million, all the things you're doing out there, they're brainwashing you that that dollar figure is winning, and you know it's not. But when you start to manifest those feelings and you find those feelings, you know those feelings that create your ultimate wealth, your emotional wealth, and you pair that together with that win, you literally energetically, not only have you won the game, but you've declared to the universe that you truly are wealthy. Wealth in the right terms, not the way other people define wealth. Wealthy as a fulfillionaire. Fulfillment aligned with your money as one. I get chills. I get literally chills as I say that to you, because that's the only way that you're actually going to win this game. And no one's telling you that. If someone's telling you to hug your kids more, hug your kids more, but it ain't going to get you there. If anyone's telling you 7 steps to $1 million, follow them, but it won't get you there until you bring the two together. And that's what I'm absolutely committed to do. I'm a stand for you. I'm a stand for everything you need until you get this concept. A millionaire is not a status. It's not how many coins you have in your savings account. It's a way of being, a state of being, because you finally won. Now, if you can't pay your rent, it's probably hard to be a fulfillionaire, and this may not be for you. But I'm telling you that wealth may be a lot more achievable with joy than you think. And I'm telling you, you can have it all. And what that simply means, it's having it all on your terms. I don't know what wealth means to you. I know what wealth means to me really clearly, because I've told the universe, I've spent the time. So I know what wealth on my terms looks like. I want you, through Fulfillionaire, to do the work so that you know what wealth on your terms looks like. That's what I wish for you. It's completely possible, completely achievable, and we're going to do this together. I'm committed to you. So just to recap our episode today, just remember that net worth is a trap. Not saying get rid of it completely. It's just not your primary number you need to look at. It's a great general assets minus your liabilities. That's the definition. It has a purpose on your spreadsheet. It is not going to be your strategic purpose to get you to the next level of fulfillment or wealth. What will? Liquidity and cash flow, like we talked about. Why are those important? Because they're the opening to your freedom. That's actually where you find your freedom, is in that liquidity and your cash flow with the strategy and your relationship between them. I have to tell you, after seeing so many people's balance sheets and their personal financial net worths, I've seen of the wealthiest people, it amazes me sometimes, the person with 100 million, a lot of times will show less than $1 million of liquidity, which I think is insane. And the reason why they're kind of coming to a private bank versus a big bank is because they know they're overspread out, they're over-speculated, and they're lacking a lot of power, which means they're in some form of distress. And I'd highly recommend to stay out of that trap. What's a lot more attractive to me when I'm looking to lend money to somebody is somebody who's maybe worth $10 million, $20 million, but has $3 or $4 million of liquidity. I actually have a loan this week on my desk, and the person wants to borrow $6 million, and they have $4.5 million of liquidity. They're bringing $2.5 million cash to this deal, and it's a deal I plan to do. So again, much lower net worth, much higher liquidity. I'm about to say yes. It says a lot, because not only does it say who they are and how they save and how they think, but it also tells me if there's a problem with their liquidity, they have more tools to solve that problem, which makes me feel a lot safer as a lender to lend them money. And I promise you, your bank is thinking the same thing as you expand out. So I hope you learned a lot from this on tactics. I promise you, if you can get what we just said and bring this as an actionable plan, it'll be life-changing. And by the way, if this is a lot, remember a couple things. A, we have workshops. We teach this in Austin, Texas, 3 times a year. And in 2 days, you will get a really big detailed view, and you will actually birth this entire, what we call the wealth pyramid, which is what we've been talking about. And we're happy to help you with this. So we can help you birth this if you want to take the time and really understand it. And we'll also offer you ongoing support to being a Fulfillionaire. And for right now, if you're saying, JP, where do I start first? This is a lot of things. Where you start first, I'd say your first stop would be to know your burn rate. And I know it sounds so basic, but if you're saying where to start, when I go into a room and ask people, how many people know how much you spend a year? It's about 10 to 15% of the people know what they spend a year. And guess what? It's not just the people without money, it's the people with money. They're so confused. What's in my business? I think my financial planner has something over here. They're not clear. So start with your burn rate. And here's how I want to help you today. Your burn rate, if you say, how do I start with it? The easiest way to start with your burn rate, there's a calculator that we're going to give you. There's like 3 or 4 things you need. It's really, really simple. A lot of times your credit card statements, year end, will tell you the whole story, but you don't have to guess. Just look in the show notes, and you're going to see the burn rate calculator that we're offering for free as part of our support to you. I would use it, birth that number, because here's what I find also. People think they know their number, and they don't. So even if you think you know that number, maybe you might want to double check it in the burn rate calculator. Questions, thoughts, aha moments you have from the burn rate calculator or this episode, please share them with us. We'll answer any questions. We love to hear your wins, and we don't mind hearing the challenges. And also, if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, now would be a perfect time. Our newsletter comes out weekly. We are going to be giving you continued strategy, tactics, mind beliefs, uploads, all kinds of things, including interviews from my podcast of some of the most successful Fulfillionaires that I know and how they do to create more fulfillment and financial success in their life. That's all I got for now. Thank you for watching the episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.